Welcome back to Klepper's Corner. Today in history. Today we're diving into February 17th, a date that, after reviewing the historical record, I can confidently say has the energy of a day that woke up, downed 4 espressos, kicked the door open, and yelled, "Let's make civilization weird." It's a date featuring heresy, constitutional panic, underwater explosions, angry opera fans, Cold War jazz enthusiasts, and the day a tiny German car officially became more popular than the Model T Ford. So buckle up. February 17th is basically the cinematic universe of human chaos. Segment 1, when heresy meets a matchstick. Giordano Bruno and the fear of big ideas. Let's begin in 1600, when the Catholic Church decided it had simply had enough of Giordano Bruno and his cosmology meets theology meets maybe every star is a sun TED Talk energy. Bruno wasn't a scientist the way we think of scientists. He was more like that one friend who reads a bunch of mystical philosophy blogs and insists the universe is infinite because it feels infinite, man. But the church wasn't threatened by his astronomy. They were threatened by his theology. Bruno denied the Trinity, the divinity of Christ, and the whole eternal damnation business, which, for a 16th century Inquisition, is like submitting a Yelp review that just says, "Terrible restaurant, 0 stars, will not return." So, on February 17th, the church burned him at the stake, an overreaction usually reserved today for group texts that include too many memes. But his execution reminds us, institutions rarely fear facts. They fear ideas that strip away their authority. And boy, does this date love reminding us of that. Segment 2. America almost broke its own electoral system. The tie of 1800. Jump to 1801, February 17th. Congress is locked in a constitutional panic spiral because Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr accidentally tied in the Electoral College. A glitch in the original software update of democracy. The House voted 35 times. 35. At some point, you just imagine exhausted representatives saying, "Can we rock, paper, scissors for this?" Alexander Hamilton, in what can only be described as the original subtweet, convinced Federalists to pick Jefferson because Burr was, in his words, dangerous. Which tells you how bad Burr must have been if Jefferson, a man who wrote, "All men are created equal," while not exactly practicing it, was considered the safe option. Finally, on the 36th ballot, a few key abstentions shifted the math and Jefferson became president. This crisis produced the 12th Amendment, which basically said, let's stop pretending we didn't just nearly implode, and force separate ballots for president and vice president. So yes, February 17th is also the day America said, maybe we should put a guardrail on this democracy thing. Segment 3, war gets weird. Submarines, fires, and humanitarian law in the 1860s. The 1860s were a chaotic decade, and February 17th was out here doing the absolute most. In 1863, Geneva citizens founded the organization that would become the International Committee of the Red Cross, a moment where humanity collectively said, maybe war shouldn't be a giant blender with people inside. Cut to 1864. The Confederacy launches the H.L. Hunley, the first submarine ever to sink an enemy warship. Imagine hand-cranking your way underwater in a tiny metal tube. It's less naval innovation and more escape room designed by someone who hates you. The Hunley blew up the USS Housatonic and then sank. The Civil War version of winning a fight but losing your keys, your car, and all your friends. Then, in 1865, Columbia, South Carolina burned to the ground as the Civil War approached its finale. Historians still debate who lit the first spark, but the broader takeaway is clear. Total war had arrived, and February 17th was taking names. So on this date, we see both the invention of humanitarian compassion and the invention of underwater hand-cranked doom pods. February 17th really likes balance. Segment 4, Culture Gets Loud. Opera disasters, avant-garde revolutions, and athlete celebrities. In 1904, Puccini premiered Madama Butterfly, and the audience responded with the 1904 equivalent of review bombing it on Rotten Tomatoes. They mocked it, they jeered. One imagines a few farm animal noises. Puccini had to go home, rewrite the entire opera, and relaunch it, which worked. The opera became a masterpiece, proving audiences will hate anything the first time, including, apparently, Puccini. Then in 1913 came the Armory Show in New York, the cultural earthquake that told Americans art doesn't have to look like the thing it represents. People walked in expecting landscapes and walked out saying, "Why does that painting look like a staircase haunted by geometry?" Marcel Duchamp's Nude Descending a Staircase, #2, got roasted so hard, critics basically called it an explosion in a lumber yard. But the show changed American art forever and democratized who gets to participate in culture. Suddenly, galleries were sourcing rather than judging, and women artists got unprecedented visibility. Then in 1924, Johnny Weissmuller broke a world swimming record, launching him into Olympic fame and eventually a Hollywood career as Tarzan. This is where February 17th says, you know what? Let's invent the modern athlete celebrity. Something Michael Jordan, also born on February 17th, would later perfect with Air Jordans, global branding, and that legendary shrug. Segment 5, the Cold War, tiny cars, big wars, and 21st century nationhood. February 17th refuses to slow down in the modern era. In 1947, Voice of America broadcast into the Soviet Union for the first time. And what did the U.S. choose as its cultural weapon? Jazz. Nothing says democracy like a saxophone refusing to follow the rules. Then in 1959, the U.S. launched Vanguard 2. The first weather satellite. It tumbled uncontrollably, gathered almost no useful data, but still changed history, which, to be fair, is how most group projects work. In 1972, the Volkswagen Beetle surpassed the Ford Model T as the most produced car in history. A car once commissioned by a dictator became the global mascot for quirky charm. Marketing really is that powerful. Then, February 17, 1979, delivered the Sino-Vietnamese War, a brutal reminder that communist nations were not a monolith. Two regional powers clashed, tens of thousands died, and the Soviet Union proved surprisingly uninterested in helping its ally. Jump to 2008. Kosovo declared independence, kicking off a legal debate so complicated that the International Court of Justice had to step in and basically say, technically, no law says they can't. Then, in 2011, Libya erupted in mass protests, while Bahrain launched a violent crackdown on peaceful demonstrators. A grim reminder that the Arab Spring wasn't a hashtag. It was a seismic global movement fueled by digital communication, desperation, and hope. And, as if February 17th hadn't done enough, it's also the anniversary of natural disasters, like the 2006 mudslide in the Philippines and the 2015 Mardi Gras stampede in Haiti. Tragedies that underscore why humanitarian systems created in 1863 remain essential today. In conclusion, February 17th is less a date and more a recurring historical plot twist. A day where ideas are challenged, systems are stress-tested, wars shift, art mutates, nations appear, satellites wobble into orbit, and the world's most famous sneaker line celebrates a birthday. It's a reminder that progress isn't linear. It's lurching, chaotic, and occasionally powered by hand-cranked submarines. So, as we step back from the centuries, February 17th leaves us with a simple truth. History isn't shaped by calm days. It's shaped by the days that refuse to sit still.